It was a blizzard. Not the ones you hear on the news where it comes for a few hours and stops. On this night, you could not see 5 feet in front of you. The holiday cheer was now a distant memory, and I was back to my single life, which had more lows than highs, especially on nights like this. I remember the feeling of loneliness I had that cold night sitting on my futon alone in my basement apartment. The longer I sat, the more my negative thoughts were magnified. I was back to working in random restaurants late into the night with a frequent visit to the pub after work. This was a negative cycle that I had trouble breaking, keeping me in a dark place and far away from the dreams I once had. The rest of my family lived about 3 hours away, and due to my financial state, I did not own a car or have many options for entertainment outside of a few buddies and my daily grind at work. As I looked outside off from my basement apartment window, I noticed the snow piling up, to the point where the light from the alleyway almost disappeared. As I considered my options for entertainment, I slowly lost hope as I noticed my internet was now down, and I was sure all stores and places to go were closed due to the weather. I tried many tactics to keep my mind busy. I looked through old pictures, then after that I considered watching one of the movies from my VHS collection. But I had seen them so many times I feared that would only add to my depression. It was shortly after that when I felt a bit of panic, realizing that I did shop for food that week. All that I had in my refrigerator were a few condiments and some old leftovers that I probably should have tossed days before. I felt the need for something tangible. If I had a genie and a lamp, I would ask for the comfort of company, a good conversation, anything other than this feeling of boredom and hunger while sitting in my apartment. The only bright side was the piping heat that came out of the radiator. The only thing that could be worse on a night like this would be the need for warmth, which I eventually decided to abandon. I knew the risks of leaving my apartment on a night like this, but I felt that might be the only thing to make me feel better. At least I would change my view, even if only for a little while. I thought maybe if I walked for a bit I would tire and get distracted from this feeling of sadness, come back and hopefully sleep well through the night. As the night went on, I decided to bundle up and go outside. My hunger was only increasing. I remember wishing I was at work, at least at the restaurant there would be free pre-shift meal for the staff. As a young man with limited resources, this was something I really looked forward to. As I closed my apartment door behind me and started walking up the stairs to the street level, I immediately felt the strong gusts of wind. The snow was blinding and there was not a soul in sight. Every once in a while I would see a blurry vision of a family watching TV together. I could not help thinking, when that might be me. When will I be the one with my family inside my home on a stormy night, while another lonely soul walked by? It was then that I remembered my parents asking me days before if I wanted to stay with them, knowing that this blizzard was coming. At the time, I wasn't sure what my work schedule would be, so I declined. In that moment, I would have given anything to be laughing with them, playing games, enjoying a hot bowl soup by the fireplace with their dog snuggled up by my hip. That vision seemed like a world away, and my hunger was only getting worse. I was in need of comfort, a port in the storm that would allow me to step away from my negative thoughts. After about 25 minutes of sledging through the snow, I realized there was no hope. There was nothing open in sight, so I decided to turn around and head home. To break the monotony, I decided to take a different route home. As I turned into the avenue, I noticed a glow about 2 streets away. There was a light coming from street level. As I walked closer, I noticed that the light was coming from a window that had a large, shiny Christmas wreath on the front. Right in front, I noticed a man shoveling by the entrance as if he was making a path. I immediately felt a sense of comfort, knowing that I was not alone and not the only fool out in this blizzard. I began to hear the faint sound of music, accompanied with an amazing smell. I was in luck. This was an open restaurant and a busy one at that. As I entered, I recognized the song that was playing. It was one of my favorite Italian songs by Andrea Bocelli. I was immediately greeted by an older man. He had a kind face and he welcomed me like a family member would. He took my coat and escorted me to a table where he placed down a carafe of red wine, a menu, and some of the best bread I ever had in my life. It was as if he read my mind and knew just what I needed on the cold winter night. With a strong accent, he said, "My name is Stefano. Welcome to my family's restaurant." He chuckled and said, "You are a brave young man coming out in this weather. I hope you feel that my wife's cooking was worth the trip." I thanked him for the warm welcome and tried to smile, but my face was still numb and felt frozen from the weather. I was able to muster a few words telling him that I was looking forward to trying everything. Stefano walked toward the kitchen and whispered something into his wife's ear. She smiled as if he told her to add some extra magic in whatever she's going to make for me. I looked around and noticed that all 10 tables in that small restaurant were full. I heard the sounds of laughter. There was a feeling of contentment. The smell of the spices from the multiple dishes coming out of the kitchen were amazing. I remember hoping that some of those smells would make their way outside to another lonely soul who needed refuge from the blizzard. It was a lucky thing for me that they decided to stay open a bit later that evening. I decided to order their risotto with a side of polenta. I needed comfort that night, not only from food, but my soul was on empty. As the night went on, between the food, music, and conversations, I felt that all of my senses were coming back to me. Until this day, I could not tell you if the food that night was just that good, or if it tasted amazing because I was so hungry. I tend to think it was both. I was incredibly grateful for this wonderful discovery that showed up for me like a mirage in a desert. It was as if I was dreaming. My family was far away, and it was as if Stefani, his wife, and the others I met that night were a group of angels sent down to take care of me. I could not help feeling like someone was looking down from above and decided to place that small restaurant filled with so much kindness and warmth in a place where I would see it. As I walked home with a full belly and a light buzz, I remember thinking that there is so much good in this world. All we need to do sometimes is brave the storm and meet it halfway. As I opened the front door to my apartment, the warmth hit my face. Somehow my apartment felt different from how I left it just hours before. I had a feeling of gratitude in my heart. I was not only grateful for what I experienced that night, but for what had in my life and for the excitement of what is to come. As I laid my head down on my pillow, I remember thinking that life is full of surprises if you are open to changing your perspective. I also understood for the first time in my life that even though there may be nights in my life where I feel lost and lonely, we are never really alone.